I call you Zeni Sage.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It gives me no pleasure to speak on the Resource Management Reform Bill because it's one of 3 bills this year which have done little credit to New Zealand's once highly regarded environmental management framework. At the start of the year we had the Exclusive Economic Zone Bill with its very weak purpose and which has a framework which is now contemplating allowing deep-sea oil drilling or oil exploration as a permitted activity. Then we had changes to the Crown Minerals Act to allow the Minister of Energy as well as the Minister of Conservation to make decisions on any applications to mine on conservation land, and we know who will win that arm wrestle. And now we've got this bill, another attack by National on the Resource Management Act. When the Right Honourable Sir Geoffrey Palmer and then the Honourable Simon Upton shepherded the Principal Act through this Parliament more than 20 years ago, the legislation was regarded as world-leading. It had been informed by extensive public consultation and discussion about the principles in the Act and the whole framework of the Act. And it was legislation that was consistent with New Zealand's international reputation for being clean and green and committed to the careful stewardship of nature and to development which met the needs of present generations without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And it was enduring partly because of that bipartisan involvement and commitment to the Act. That image has been shattered. This year, we can't even look after the children of the current generation without even thinking about future generations. Government's abandoned its commitment to the Kyoto. We've attracted criticism from United Nations officials, and we've got a government that is not committed to giving integrity to our 100% pure brand. And on this bill, there's been absolutely no effort by government to develop any cross-party commitment to the changes that may be needed to the RMA, none of the extensive public consultation that we saw on the Principal Act, and so we risk zigzag policy making where the next government undoes much of the work of its predecessor. And so, Mr Speaker, as part of a key part of the whole system of managing our natural resources and our environment, the RMA should not be an ideological football. But in this bill, it is. Because, Mr Speaker, we all benefit from clean rivers, from compact cities, from groundwater that is not contaminated by nitrates, from sewage that is well treated and doesn't go into rivers, from coastlines which inspire us with their natural beauty rather than being overshadowed by big pretentious holiday homes. Yet it's this sort of development that this bill will allow, development that cuts across that 100% pure image. And it's a shameful bill which the Green Party will be opposing because it epitomises the national government's develop at all costs and to hell with the environment. Go after the dollars now with no thought for the consequences that that has for the quality of life for others or the quality of nature. It's a selfish bill to promote selfish development, and we're opposing it for a number of reasons. One of those is that it promotes speedy decisions rather than quality decisions. It's all about Wellington getting involved in the minutiae of decision-making, whether it's in Auckland or whether it's the timetable for councils to consider consents. When you have a 6-month time limit on councils being able to consider and process consents, regardless of the scale and complexity of the application, that cuts across the community's ability to get involved. Because any developer can spend years working up an application, puts it into council, and then the community gets a month, effectively, to be able to understand the development and make submissions on it. So that will lead to quick decisions, yes, but not ones that are good quality, not ones that recognise the scope of environmental impacts. And again, another way the bill reduces public participation. It sets a 20 working day limit on the public submission period, again, regardless of the scale of the proposal. The bill restricts access to justice, to the Environment Court. Because and this I think is a direct attack on NGOs like Forest and Bird, which have had to pick up the baton because we don't have statutory agencies such as the Department of Conservation engaging in the level of resource management advocacy that they used to, that limits interested party status in any Environment Court appeal to those that are directly affected by the application. Now, Mr Speaker, what that means is that if you're from the Whitewater, New Zealand, you've got an interest in a river, but you may not kayak that river yourself, there might be a future potential recreational value of the river, they potentially won't be allowed to get involved in any Environment Court appeals. Mr Speaker, the bill is also bad because of the way in which it makes it much more difficult for councils such as Manawatu to introduce regulation to control intensive land uses such as intensive agriculture, because the changes to the Section 32 analysis, which bring into play assessments of economic growth anticipated to cease if the council introduces rules controlling, for example, nutrient leaching or stocking numbers in sensitive catchments, the council now has to take that economic impact have particular regard to that. So it will mean, and this follows on from Minister Carter's criticisms of the Manawatu plan for introducing rules which seek to protect our rivers, to clean up our rivers, and put rules in place to do that. This is why the government is targeting councils that do that by making it very difficult to put in place regulation through the much more stringent Section 32 requirements. And again, on the Auckland plan, the Minister mentioned consultation with Council about appointing the hearing panel for Auckland, but there is no right of the Auckland Council to appoint the commissioners that will hear submissions on their combined plan. Once again, it's control central. This government wanting to direct everything from Wellington. Is Auckland happy with that? I doubt it. And again, just like the Environment Canterbury legislation, the government is seeking through the bill to restrict the appeal rights. People will only be able to appeal decisions on the Auckland plan to the Environment Court if the Council rejects the recommendations of the government-stacked hearing panel. It can't appeal to the court if the Council upholds those recommendations. And again, Mr Speaker, there's a very limited period, 20 days I think it is, for the Council to consider the hearing panel's recommendations. So we've got a very truncated process to make sure that the government hearing panel on the Auckland Combined Plan comes up with the recommendations that the government wants, and that there's a very limited ability to challenge it. So not only is the bill reducing the ability of the community to participate in resource consent decisions, but it's also reducing the scrutiny that those decisions will get in the Environment Court by the restrictions on participation in appeals and the limitations, particularly in the Auckland Council process. So, Mr Speaker, the Green Party will be strongly opposing the bill. The streamlining that the government is talking about will result in poor decisions which have got the fingerprints of Wellington all over them, rather than promoting local decision-making by communities and public participation, which was such a cornerstone of the Resource Management Act when it was introduced. Thank you.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, firstly I want to commend Minister Amy Adams